The Queen's Jewish Link presents the Jewish Living Podcast, the show that examines the many facets of Orthodox Jewish life. Here's your host, Izzo Zwirin.
As we enter week 3 of the coronavirus, it has now become abundantly clear that this isn't going anywhere fast. For those who have had their Pesach plans upended, you are hopefully up to the acceptance stage of grief. However, with the month of Nisan now upon us, many people might be rightfully worried about the production, distribution, and overall availability of food during this crisis. So this week, we called in the exact right person for this discussion.
Jay Buchsbaum here, Executive Vice President of Marketing and Director of Wine Education for Kedem and Keiko.
Jay and I will delve deep into what Kedem and Keiko will be doing to ensure there is enough food available nationwide for Pesach this year, as well as some other areas Kedem is focusing on. Jay, thank you so much for joining me. I know that we've been trying to do this for a while, and I'm happy that we were able to. So thank you so much for spending time, especially during this crazy time that we're going through right now. So first of all, before we get into exactly what we're going to be talking about in terms of how Kedem is handling coronavirus, I want to get a little bit of background on Kedem and Keiko. Because can you explain to me the difference between Kedem and Keiko and what that means?
Okay, so Kedem is really the name for Royal Wine Corp.
Okay.
So it's the parent company, and Royal Wine Corp is a parent company. Kedem is referred to mostly as the wine part of it, and Keiko is the food part of it.
Okay. And you do food production, but you also do distribution. Is that correct?
Yeah, I would say more distribution than production.
Right. So when we're talking about distribution, which brands are we discussing here?
Geffen, Glick, Kedem, Manischewitz now, Wasatsky tea, Elite chocolate.
Wow. So basically, a lot of the staples of the Jewish diet. That's what we're discussing when we're talking about
Yehuda matzah.
So especially a lot of the stuff that we consume on Pesach, because we can't have a lot of the non-Jewish production foods. So a lot of that is being distributed by Kedem.
Correct.
Okay. So when most people think of Kedem, they tend to focus towards Kedem grape juice is like the number one thing. And I know recently Welch's became kosher, but it doesn't even touch the quality of Kedem grape juice. But there's also Baron Herzog that is run under Kedem. Is that correct?
That is correct.
That's correct. So we're talking about a large number of foods and drinks that are consumed by Jews on a regular basis, but also on especially on Pesach time. So the thing that's going on mostly in people's minds right now is making sure that they have enough food going into Pesach, especially with coronavirus. So I was going to ask you, and I'm going to do that right now, what is Kedem doing in light of recent events and recent crackdowns in order to ensure that this food is able to be circulated and purchased in time for Pesach?
Well, we've tried to bump up as much inventory as possible, way beyond what the normal Pesach would require. And part of that, of course, is due to just, I think, a little bit, I don't want to call it hysteria, but a little bit of concern amongst the public that is buying extra just to make sure they have it. But also a big part of that is most people who would go away for Pesach are not going away.
Exactly.
So there's a tremendous amount of local, you depended on a hotel or a program of some kind to supply your food. Now you're staying home, and so you have to buy. Some people have not made Pesach in 20 years or more.
Right.
And so, there's a much larger request or drive towards buying much more foods.
So in terms of that demand that you're looking to meet, is Kedem ready for that type of a thing? Is there any extra prep that goes into that? Where are you guys on a production?
Well, we have more food than we had in the past in a quick, ramp up of it. But I would say that it's still going to be trying. I think the most important thing that we're doing is getting it out to the stores as quickly as we can. That's really where we've ramped up and we've been able to ramp up on a much quicker scale, just making sure that everybody gets whatever they're ordering as much as possible, as quickly as possible.
Now, I don't know if you've taken this into account, but in my supermarket, I have a local Stop and Shop supermarket that has a huge Pesach section this time of year. And as all of the other sections in the supermarket started dwindling, I saw a lot of non-Jewish, my next door neighbor who's not Jewish, shopping in that section. So it's not just your regular Orthodox Jewish crowd. It's not just your crowd that you're going to be talking about that buys stuff specifically for Pesach. It's also, because of the hysteria that you mentioned, it's the non-Jewish crowd that is also purchasing this stuff. I was wondering if you guys had that in mind now.
We did not. We did not. Our primary focus is always, I mean, we love the idea, and we have many, many products that cross over into what we call beyond market. But we are true to our core consumer, which is the observant kosher consumer.
Right. Okay. So in general, this time of year, not to belittle the importance of what's going on in terms of coronavirus, but in general, this time of year is probably a much heavier production time for you. You're not only serving the Orthodox Jewish community that you serve year round, but there's a lot of people that demand your products this time of year that may not live in a classically frum neighborhood with a kosher supermarket readily available. Are your distribution methods different this time of year in general, that you're maybe sending out to less frequented places for Jews?
Well, throughout the country, most supermarket chains, even in like Indiana or whatever, will have a small to a larger section of Passover products, even if they don't have a large section during the year of kosher products, because Passover is the most celebrated of all Jewish holidays, even amongst the non-observant. So everybody wants their box of matzah and maybe their gefilte fish, if that's what, or their egg noodles, et cetera, et cetera.
And of course, people have to have their stereotypical Manischewitz wine at this time of year.
Or their Kedem, actually.
Or their Kedem.
There's a big movement now towards people understanding that kosher wine has much better wines. And so now they're buying Baron Herzog and Lineage and Carmel and Barkan and a whole bunch of other Israeli and American wines.
Yep, I actually work in the Bronx, in a very non-Jewish section of the Bronx, and there's a liquor store right by my office, and they actually have a large section of kosher wines. Me and maybe one other person that I work for, we're the only ones that go in there that look specifically for kosher wines, but it has gone into the mainstream, definitely, for sure. I was wondering if you thought of Kedem or kosher food in general as a way to reach out to maybe the Pintele Yid, and especially this time of year.
I think one of the areas where that works best is in wine.
Okay.
Because, people are, I did this seminar for a whole bunch of wine geeks who take care of wine store managers in Pennsylvania. I did 120 to 140 people over a 3-day period. And, we talked, it was a kosher 101 on wine. Okay. What I did was I lined up, I asked by a raise of hands, there was not a Jewish person there. I added by raise of hands, who's kosher here? Of course, nobody raised their hands. And I had lined up a chocolate bar, egg and potato chips, and a water. It was in front of the wine. And I said, "You're all lying." And they looked at me like quizzically, "What do you mean we're all lying?" And I said, who uses Heinz ketchup? And everybody raised their hands. Who drinks Coca-Cola? And everybody raised their hands, et cetera, et cetera. And I said, well, here's a Coca-Cola can. I'm going to pass it around. Take a look at the top. There's a little circle U. And you don't see that in the kosher section. It's just in the Coca-Cola section. Now, having said that, so, when it comes to food, it's not as pervasively different. But when it comes to wine, and you can show people that there's great Israeli wines, and you can show people that there's great Herzog wines from California that are kosher, that's when you can reach out more. I think those are a little bit more effective.
And do you see that when you go maybe to a wine show? Do you see that people are being more open about these things, that are more maybe attracted to the kosher wines than they had been in the past?
Yeah, well, yes, I think they are, definitely. I mean, take a look at Bar Tanura. Bar Tanura, probably 80+% of it, if not more, is not sold to a kosher consumer.
Right. That was helped by it appearing, I think, in a rap video or
That's right.
some rapper's Instagram page. But yes, that's definitely true. When we put out great kosher products, there ends up being another market for it, just not because it's kosher, but because it's a great product to begin with.
Right.
So, in terms of these great products, so you were mentioning a lot of Baron Herzog. So, what does Jay Buchsbaum, who is considered a wine connoisseur, what does Jay Buchsbaum drink for his Arba Kosos?
I cannot tell you how many times I've been asked that question.
Perfect.
And the honest truth is, I don't really know until game time.
Okay.
I send my son down to the cellar if I'm home or if I'm away at a Pesach program. You know, we have a whole group of wines that are in the back, and I send them there and I go, guys, you know, pick something nice. So I would suggest that, you know, a lot of people say they want to start their Seder with an Israeli wine.
Okay.
Because they, you know, support of Eretz Yisrael and because they want to feel like they're in Eretz Yisrael, whatever.
Absolutely.
You know, live through the wine, so to speak. But I like to think that you should start your Seder with something a little lighter.
Okay.
Maybe a Pinot Noir or a Rosé. Because remember, you're pretty much on an empty stomach until the Seder begins. And you want to, and most people, or many, like to finish that first cup completely.
Right.
So that's where I tend to go toward the lighter wine for the first course.
Okay. And are you going sweet, semi? Are you going dry? Where are you going?
Always go dry.
Dry the whole way through.
Maybe the last course I'll do something sweet.
Okay.
Because it's like the dessert wine, but generally dry.
All right. So you're going dry, but I'm assuming a lot of Jews don't like dry. If somebody wants to go sweet the whole way through, what are you recommending?
So Moscato is always a great choice. Bartonero Moscato.
Okay.
If you want it red, you can get the Malvasia, which is like the sister rosé, you know, reddish wine to the Moscato.
Okay.
There's also Rashi Light. There's Kedem Kal. There's a whole bunch of wines that are cream red Concord. All of those have different ranges in alcohol levels, but they're all either semi-dry or sweet.
For those out there who enjoy a sweet wine, I will tell you my favorite is the Baron Herzog Late Harvest Zinfandel. Go out, buy yourself a bottle. That is the absolute best wine that you make if you like sweet wine. So if anybody's listening, that is my recommendation if you like sweet wines. I'm not sure if Jay, if you're gonna echo that or if you have any other options on that level.
I think it's a great wine.
Yeah, that is my personal favorite. What can we look for from Kedem in the next 5 to 10 years? Any plans of expansion? Any new products that we're looking at?
Oh my gosh, there's no question about it. I mean, we, you know, as little as 5 years ago, we had I'm guessing a little over 200 SKUs, meaning types and varieties of wine. Mm-hmm. Now we're approaching 500.
Oh, wow.
And my guess is that in 5 years from now, it'll be probably 600-700.
Wow.
What's happening is that consumers that always stuck to, you know, what you suggest, which is sweet wines, are now slowly but very surely expanding their horizons and looking for ever different, ever new, ever more complex, wonderful wines from all over the world. So.
Absolutely.
That's what you're going to see a lot more Israeli wines, I think. You're going to see a lot more wines from Europe. You're going to see an expansion of California wines. I think you're going to see wines from all over the world expanding in type, variety, and flavor profile.
That sounds phenomenal, especially for those of us who enjoy a nice wine. What about on the Keiko side, on the food side?
I think the biggest move on the food side is, once again, kosher consumers are always looking for something new, fresh, healthier, you know, less ingredients, less processed, more natural products. But I think what also you're going to find is we're going to be continuing to expand and look at products that can go in what we call the beyond market. So gluten-free, sesame, things that can address the general as well as specifically the kosher consumer.
Now, a lot of your products are going to be boxed. They're on supermarket shelves. What about meats and you said the Beyond Markets? My first thought was the Beyond Burger style.
Oh no, I guess we may have an entry in that someday, but that's not the top of the priority list. There are very good producers and suppliers of meat products. We're not really in that business. We have some deli and some turkey and other meats, sliced meats from Eretz Yisrael, but as far as the burgers and meat stuff, that's not really our business at this time.
All right, so I just want to touch back on one thing that we were talking about in the beginning, and that is the current Corona issue. So you mentioned that people are overstocking on products, and that could lead to a shortage. Your recommendation for people who are worried about a shortage in products?
I would say, buy a little bit extra, but I'm not sure that I would urge people to go crazy. And let's keep it sane. Remember that more importantly than having too much food is having too much exposure to other people. So if you're going to run to the store and squeeze yourself into a line, that's much more problematic than being a little short on matzah.
Right,
so
exactly.
And so I would suggest that use your seichel, but don't go too crazy, especially if it means that you're going to have to, go against the social distancing recommendations that we all are being told to follow.
Absolutely. And from a production standpoint, you guys are monitoring, I'm assuming, your employees closely to make sure that nothing gets contaminated and things like that.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, the office this time of year would be packed with people, but probably half the office is empty, not because they're not working, but we're doing it from online. The only reason I'm here this long today is because I'm doing the interview with you. Otherwise, by now I'd be home.
Oh, wow. So yeah, we definitely appreciate you taking out some time in order for you to talk to us and get the word out as to what people can expect from Kedem, especially during this time. Is there anything else you'd like to impart on us before we say goodbye?
Instead of doing the whole pitch about food and wine and brands, I'm telling you, the main message I want to give everybody is, if you need to do shopping, do it very, very carefully and with real important attention to the social distancing. We have water. We could go out and buy a heck of a lot more water. We're not doing that because we have enough for the next couple of weeks, we think. We put a filter under one of our sinks so that we could use water from the tap instead of, buying up all the water that's on the floor at Costco. Again, all in an effort to avoid, to increase the social distancing that we're all being. And it's very sad, of course, that we're missing minyanim, but we should look at it as a badge of honor that our Torah scholars and our rabbinic organizations are telling us to do this. This is something that's a mitzvah. It's not something that we should take lightly and that we should feel badly about. We should revel in it, and Shmarten es nafshosechem is more important than virtually everything except for the three cardinal sins. So please stay safe out there. We're going to do our best in-house to have social distancing here within our work environment and to make sure it's clean and pristine as much as absolutely possible. We've hired much more people to keep rotating throughout the building and cleaning it on a regular basis. So that's my wish, is that we all pray. I say be careful, but pray harder.
Yeah. When the marketing guy is telling you that branding is not the most important thing right now, it's serious.
That's right.
So Jay Buchsbaum, thank you so much for joining us, and as to you and to everybody else, stay safe out there.
Thank you for having me, and really stay safe out there. And a kosher and freilichen and good Pesach. Safe.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. My thanks to Jay Buchsbaum from Kedem for spending time with me while his company and indeed the world are in crisis mode. We really appreciate his take on how we can help ourselves during these times. A few people have asked me if I plan on having a public health official or an infectious disease doctor on to talk about the virus itself. The truth is that I did reach out to a few. However, for obvious reasons, this is the busiest time of their lives, and were understandably unable to come on. Besides, there are plenty of shows out there who have had these specialists on, and they are readily available. So for now, I'm still just going to stick to the parts of this pandemic that are unique to our community. Well, not that school and food are unique to the Jews, but you get the point. If there are certain areas of the situation you think needs to be covered, please reach out to us. But for now, as always, Kol Tov.
The Jewish Living Podcast is produced by Swirly Pikus. Our theme song is The Band by A.B. Rottenberg from Journeys 4. You can email the show at jewishlivingpodcast@gmail.com. You can also find us on Twitter at Jewish_living. The Jewish Living Podcast is recorded in conjunction with the Queen's Jewish Link.